My name is Dan McCorquodale. I was on the County Board of Supervisors representing District 3 from 1972 to 1982. At that point, I was elected to the state senate. My mission and my journey to the Board of Supervisors began in 1950 when I had been going through life thinking that everything was going fine, that there was, I didn't really know what discrimination meant, and I didn't know about justice until one day I took a friend who was black to his school to pick up some work that he had to pick up. And I'd heard that the school, the black school, was separate but equal, but when I got to the school, I discovered that they had a multitude of different type desks, that in high school, some people were still using elementary school desks, that some of the books that he was picking up were books that had been discarded from my school 6 or 7 years before. And it made me start thinking about this issue of justice. As I went on through and finished school, and I discovered that this problem of injustice really spread all across the board. People who thought Babe Didrikson was a lesbian because she was such a great sports person, that she could play golf and throw the javelin and do runs and jumps, that there must be something wrong with her. And so it just seemed to me that there were a lot of problems wrong in the world and that somebody ought to be doing something about it. My first entrance into political activities was when I discovered that another friend that I had was unable to marry the girl that he wanted to marry, that he had met in the service, and they couldn't get married in Texas because Texas did not allow interracial marriages. He was white, she was black. And so I thought, that's not fair. And I got involved with a group to try, and we worked for about a year off and on trying to get the law changed. That law wasn't, we couldn't even get a legislator to introduce the bill. And I realized that nothing is going to change easily. When I ran for the Board of Supervisors, I saw a lot of the same type of inequities that I had experienced before. I'd spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, and I saw the discrimination again against blacks and Hispanics, even though in the chores that they had to carry out, fighting and doing the normal things that Marines do, that they really were better than a lot of the white Marines, and that there was no reason for them to face that discrimination. So a chance to run for the Board of Supervisors came when I had moved here to go to work in the school district, and discovered that the supervisor that was representing the area that I lived had very few ideas and philosophies that compatible with the way I felt about things. And the most onerous one was that the county had agreed to build a series of mental health centers around the county, and the last one to be built was in the East Valley. And then they decided they were short of money and that they would not build that one, and the supervisor from that district made no objections to it. He didn't go to bat for having the center. And so it just seemed to me that as I looked around in my neighborhood, that the East Valley often did not get the services that the rest of the county was getting, and decided I would run for the Board of Supervisors. I was fairly new to the county at that time. I had moved here from San Diego County to work in the school district, and didn't have very much money. I had a wife and 3 kids, which took up all the money I made as a teacher. And so I thought that I had to do campaigning different. So I started out about a year and a half before the election and walking. And by the 18 months went by, I had walked to between 3,000 and 4,000 miles, door to door, and walked to 80,000 doorways. And in the process, I had recruited over 1,000 people to work in the campaign. Many of them who gave anywhere from $1 or $2 for just a change out of their pocket, or $10 or various amounts, so that we raised $19,000 to run a campaign that was 1/5 of Santa Clara County. I was the front runner in the primary, and then I defeated the incumbent in the general election. When I went on the Board of Supervisors, I'd always thought that the role of an elected office holder was not just to go in and vote on the issues that were put before them by the administration, but that you would consciously seek out items that would further what you viewed as your mission or your goal or your objective of being in office. To do that, for me, it seemed the way I needed to do it would be that I would look at every issue that came before the board, and if I could find that measure did not fit completely with my objective of eliminating the discrimination and injustice that I was viewing in the world, that I would vote no on the measure. There's several advantages to a new office holder voting no on the measures. One is that he comes to the attention of a lot of people. I could have gone the whole first year on the Board of Supervisors and probably never had my name in the newspaper or on radio or television, but because I voted no on issues, every article that was written in which I was involved mentioned my name as a person who had voted no. So it often would never mention the person or the 4 other people who voted yes. They just mentioned me as the only person mentioned in connection with that issue. So it meant, and it seemed to people, that I was living up to the issues that I'd raised when I was running for office, that I didn't back down on any issue. I got a lot of threats that I would never get a measure through, that I would never be able to get any of my issues taken up because everybody would be mad at me for voting no. But in reality, I spent the first 2 years that I would never have gotten anything through on the board in any event. So by voting no, though, I established myself as a person who had a particular interest, that I really did take an interest in the issues that came before the Board of Supervisors. And in reality, in the 10 years that I was there, I probably voted on 15,000 issues. And I probably didn't vote no a huge amount of times, but there were enough times that some people who followed the Board of Supervisors, and one reporter once told me that I voted no more times in the first year that I was there than the Board of Supervisors had voted, anybody had voted no on the whole board in the past 10 years. So it must have been at least a few times. Some of the things that I worked on that I did accomplish, and I would say that it's really a misnomer for elected official to say that they accomplished or that they did some particular thing, because on the Board of Supervisors it takes 3 votes and sometimes 4 votes to accomplish something. But if you can understand the process of all the people who arrive to be on a Board of Supervisors, they all have some interest, some particular concern that is overriding, that they really want to deal with, And if you understand that, it makes it much easier for you to work with them and to know what is of interest. Some of the issues that were up in 1972 are still with us. The issue of the county hospital and the support by the county. Many times over the years since 1972, someone has been wanting to solve the problems of Valley Medical Center by selling it or giving it away. And in fact, 19 counties in California have privatized their county hospitals, and some of the larger counties, San Francisco and San Diego and Los Angeles, as an example, have turned their hospitals over to the university, and they do run it and do a good job. But if people don't like the practices and the policies of that hospital, how do you change the policy of the Los Angeles hospital? You'd have to go to the Board of Trustees. You'd have to get them together. It would take you, it would just not really be possible for a single individual. In Santa Clara County, somebody gets mistreated at Valley Medical Center, can walk down the next Tuesday to the Board of Supervisors and talk about it and seek redress at that point. So healthcare is an important part of all of our lives, and consequently people should have easy access to those people who are providing it, especially if it's being provided and that they have no other basis of having that service provided to them. Some of the things that I've been very happy and very proud to have done was that I did provide a point where I wouldn't say that I was responsible for changing the attitude of elected officials or the bureaucratic process on hiring of minorities or women into non-traditional jobs. But because I was there and because I raised those issues on an ongoing basis, and again, because I voted no on issues that came to the board that did not reflect those possibilities, there was a change over a period of time. And the one example is that when I went on the Board of Supervisors, there was one department head that was headed by a woman. That was the library. Just 5 or 7 years ago now, in the just after the year 2000, all of the justice organizations were headed by women. Sheriff's Department, the district attorney, public defender, county council, the presiding judge, and so that time really changed over the years. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to do. I appointed the first woman commissioner to the Fire Commission. They'd never had a woman on, and they were horrified that I would expect that a woman could understand the complexities of the fire service. She turned out to be one of the best commissioners I think the county ever had in the fire service. Those things take time, and they are, you have to constantly be concerned about them. Today, the county has a very diverse workforce. People wouldn't think of not having all of the Asians, the Hispanics, blacks, and all of the different nationalities that have come to live in Santa Clara County as part of that workforce. The one area that probably at the time I came on the board, nobody really thought of them as being deprived or not having level of justice that they might deserve, and that was developmentally disabled. The general thinking in the early 70s was that they really couldn't do anything. They had to be taken care of. But in reality, a lot of the developmentally disabled people are capable of performing some fairly significant tasks. And so I supported workshops. I supported the ability to provide work training for them. And then I convinced the Board of Supervisors to start a program where we would identify a number of jobs that could be done by developmentally disabled, and then hire and train developmentally disabled to do those jobs. And that activity is still going on. People are still working and being able to enjoy themselves. And then when I went to the State Senate, I took it on to Sacramento, did the same type of thing. And when I left the Senate, we had between 7,000 and 9,000 developmentally disabled people employed in California, from everything from cleaning the rest stops to working in fast food places. And what that did was that it gave them money enough to be able to live independently if they were able to do that. It gave them opportunities to take part in recreational activities that they might never have been able to enjoy, and gave them rights that they really had but didn't think they had. And so in some cases, it gave them right to marry, and as I indicated, right to live where they wanted to live and with who they wanted to live, and made a whole new world for many of them to that never would have existed before. Probably some of the things that I have thought would happen, but never happened. We were never able to get laws changed to allow, at least in the 12 states that prohibited interracial marriages. But in 1967, the Supreme Court took care of that. And 11 of the states changed their constitution or laws, except unfortunately, the one that I was working in, which was in Texas, still has in their constitution the prohibition. Of course, it can't be enforced, although 2 years ago, there was still a justice of the peace who refused to marry an interracial couple because he said the Texas Constitution trumped the U.S. Constitution. Luckily, he got enough pressure on him that he decided to retire. In Santa Clara County, there was an effort to provide that there could be no discrimination against gays, lesbians, and transgender people. And at the time, I thought that we were probably moving faster than would be acceptable to deal with that. But supporters and advocates for those groups wanted to go, and so the county adopted an ordinance. People got a referendum against it, and was voted down. And so since then, there have been some changes taking place on an ongoing basis, and to some extent, it's followed the course that I think is most important for people who want to see change, is that they have an advocate group for themselves, and they advocate for themselves, and they bring up issues and push issues when they think that their group, whether it's ethnic or gender or any other area, that the time's right. And so there have been a lot of changes for those groups, and I think that we will see. I used to always say that in my lifetime I would see it be legal for the gay and lesbians to marry, but the older I get, the more I say maybe that won't happen while I'm still alive, but I think it will happen before too long, either through the courts, which would seem the most likely, or as a number of states have done to do it by individual states that change their laws to allow that to happen. Laws that interfere with people's opportunities and their ways of doing, and that treat a small group of the population differently than the rest of the population. It just doesn't seem to me that if we really go back and look at our Constitution and what our purpose as a country is, and I think that we need to always keep in mind that the founders of our nation envisioned that there may be time of that rebellions might take place, and that that would be as they rebelled against England, that if government became too onerous, that people might rebel. And we've seen some of those many rebellions at times in our lifetime. Certainly in the Vietnam conflict, people were rebelling, young people were challenging the status quo and the people, and to some extent the government responded as if it was a rebellion. They certainly responded at some of the colleges as the National Guard shot and killed young people. It was done in the South in the civil rights as the government sicked dogs on people that were peacefully protesting. And today, as we see greater and greater people who feel alienated from their government. So the efforts of elected officials, as I had indicated before, not just to go and to be an approver of what the administrators decide ought to be done, because it's so easy to start believing that the most important thing that the number one purpose of government is to protect itself and to further itself, when in reality there needs to be a continuous change as people recognize that people might be more capable of assuming more of their responsibilities and to have more choice in how they deal with various issues.
Wow, that was
okay, now you can ask the second question.
I think you pretty much covered all the other questions I had.
Good question.
Yeah. Just one thing that you might want to talk about is, you're so influential in the growth of the parks system, and I know there is a particular battle to get Penitentiary Creek Park, and I believe there's some relationship with Grant Ranch and stuff. So maybe if you could take a few minutes and explain why parks are so important to you, especially on the east side, and kind of your battle to get Penitentiary Creek Park.
Yep. One area that I would comment on that has to do with an issue that's always been important to me is a need, and especially in an urban society and a growing society, is the need for parks. A whole range of parks that mothers can take their children and let them play in a sandbox and just get the experience of being outdoors, to baseball diamonds and basketball facilities where young people and teenagers can run and use up all the excess energy that they might have in some way that's a positive thing, but still creates a little competitiveness between each other, to places where people can go and escape high pressure urban area and camping and hiking and just getting away from the large populations. When I went on the Board of Supervisors, as I was running, there was a proposal to have a tax rate, portion of the tax rate set aside to buy parks. I supported that measure. In fact, I criticized it early because I thought that the amount that they were going to ask for, which would be 5 cents on the tax rate, was not adequate, that they should be putting in double that, 10 cents, so that there would be money not only for acquisition but money to assure the operation of the parks. What finally went on the ballot was the 10 cents, and it was passed, and we adopted the plan, the park plan. Every year we would adopt one, and it would be for 5 years later. Had a first 5-year plan, and then each year would add another year to it, so that we'd know what types of parks we were going to have. I thought it would be very easy to get into that plan the concept of urban parks, so that some of that money would be spent in areas in which, for whatever reason, parts of the county had not been, had parks developed in them. And so I proposed it. The proposal was ignored. So for several years, I voted against the park plan every year, and I'd run with people thinking I was an environmentalist, and I think all at once the environmentalists thought I was a traitor because I was voting no on the park plan. But the problem was, as I saw it, that at least half of my district had not benefited at all from anything having to do with the building of parks, and that there ought to be some, with this source of money, with all these people still paying into the tax for it, they ought to be rewarded by being able to see a park built in their area. The opportunity came when there was a proposal that Grant Ranch was going to be sold. It had been left by the owners to an environmental group and to a medical foundation, and they were wanting the money and wanted to sell it, so they were going to offer it for sale. There were a number of ranchers who indicated that they would buy it, but that they would want to develop it, and that this large section of land, 10 miles or 15 miles from downtown San Jose, would become a large bedroom community out there of large homes. It wasn't really liked by anybody, but the cost was going to be pretty big. We were going to have to, we got it appraised, and we were going to have to pay the appraisal price. And so I decided that I didn't like that idea because I thought we could keep it from being developed by zoning on it, but that we ought to be spending some money in the valley floor. The opportunity then was before us to buy Grant Ranch, and basically we had a 3-2 vote on the measure, and but the county council had to advise us that it would take 4 votes because it had not been put into the budget, and anything going into the budget with that hadn't been approved at budget time, at the 10 days in the summer when we had the budget, would have to be approved by 4 votes. So I just waited. I listened to all the entreaties of why I should vote for the Grant Ranch, and I just finally said, you know, it seems to me that if we're going to buy 10,000 acres out in the hills and in the mountains, that we could at least buy a few hundred acres on the valley floor. And so Supervisor Dearden and Supervisor Steinberg decided that they would try to figure out what to do. And so they finally agreed to set aside the same amount of money that we were spending for Grant Ranch for a park on the valley floor. And so at that point, we had another vote, and we got the necessary votes to buy Grant Ranch. It was a win-win for everybody. It was a great piece of land for a park, and is meeting a lot of the park needs for people. It's close to the valley floor. but it can still be in the area that's almost like a wilderness. And then we decided to build and buy some land along Penitencia Creek for the park and Penitencia in the east side. And that was, and now it hasn't been completed yet. It has had some development of the trails, and the city of San Jose has used part of the land for a park area, and so it still has some potential, but we still have a large section of population east of the freeway, basically, but most in the Alum Rock area, that the nearest park that young people can have a ball game in or run around in or to just use up their energy is 2 miles or more from many of those people who live there. And and that park is Alum Rock Park, in which is not the type of park that would satisfy that need anyway. It's almost like Grant Ranch. It's just out of reach for an awful lot of people. The main road to Alum Rock Park has been closed for a number of years, and that's an unsatisfied and an unsuccessful effort that has to go on and needs to go on for the county to take some of the money that it gets every year on the tax rate allocation, and to look at what they could do to ensure that there's more recreational and park activities for young people in the county. I'm familiar most with the ones that are in the East Valley and that were in the 3rd Supervisor District, but there may be others in the same situation that have grown up too fast, that they haven't been able to build parks or to meet the park needs, and it's an unmet objective that I worked very hard on, but I have to admit that I only partially succeeded, and I'm hoping I see it completed again during my lifetime.